Can a knife have too much form over function? And can a pocket clip alone be a deal breaker? Well, pocket clip snobs rejoice. You're about to have your day today. Let's meet our knife and get started. There it is. That is the Massdrop Dew Hara Kabuto. This is designed by custom knife maker Dew Hara. Very proficient Japanese knife maker. He's kind of been born and bred into it. He's, the Japanese knife scene is alive and well. And looking at this, you can see a lot of his work in this and a lot of the inspiration. The customs go for the thousands up to the $1,000 mark. So if that's something that you're interested in and you want to get your hands on a piece of his work, this might be for you. But as we roll through this review, we're going to talk about why this one probably is going to be a leave it, just to give you a heads up, guys. But we are going to break this down into the pros, the so-sos, and the oh-nos, the things it's doing well. That's the pros, and the so-sos are going to be things that are just kind of talking points, things that aren't deal breakers, but things that kind of make you go, okay, let's talk about that. And then the oh-nos are the things that are the potential deal breakers, the things that make you take a step back and think about whether you should get this knife or not. Let's drop in our size comparison snapshot real quick, and it's going to give you an idea about how big this knife is. You can see it's going to be a little bit shorter than my Code 4. And a little bit bigger than the bug out in a lot of the dimensions. So there's our size comparison. Let's get started and talk about this knife. This knife does come in a couple different variations. You have the G10, and you have the carbon fiber, and you have a rosewood. The rosewood is an extra $20, I believe. The carbon fiber is an extra $50. The G10 base model rolls in at $139, so a little bit of basic math tells us that this is going to be about $189. So you're looking at about 190 bones for this guy right here. Well, what are you getting? The first thing I want to talk about in the pros is this carbon fiber. I got to give it to it. With all the other things we're going to talk about this knife, I will tell you guys that they did a great job on this carbon fiber. The attention to detail and the milling that they did on here is fantastic. We're going to get a little bit closer to let you guys take a look. So there it is. I mean, it is just well done. The amount of milling and just, thought that went into this. You have 4 different pieces. You have like the little pivot collar piece here and the body scales here. Same thing on the reverse, but just really great. I didn't detect any voids when I went through and over the knife in the carbon fiber. It was really smooth. Nothing feels unfinished, and just a lot of thought in how this is all going to fit together. I mean, you can see it's almost like a puzzle piece there. Great job by Wee on this carbon fiber. So I got to give it to it. I can't deny that this is done really well. So great job. The next thing we're going to touch on real quick is the action, and that's going to be the deployment, and then just closing it as well. This is on caged ceramic bearings, and you notice that as you actuate this button lock. Now it is a button lock that locks it closed and open, so at this point it is locked closed. The only way to open it is the button lock. Another talking point for later on, but very snappy, very great action. It is nice. I do like that. There's a lot of fidget factor and satisfaction in operating this knife, just actuating that button. So that's another good talking point for this knife, is just the beautiful carbon fiber and the really good action on the button lock. So that's kind of going to be where we wrap up the pros of the knife. Unfortunately, there's quite a few so-sos to talk about, and then there are going to be some oh-nos to go over. So a couple things to talk about with the so-sos. The price on this guy. And it'll kind of be full circle once we get to the end of the review. For $189.99, what you're getting here, a lot of it just doesn't work for me on what you're going to be doing, and that's going to play into my final decision on this knife. But you are getting great, beautiful carbon fiber, an S35BN, blade steel, and that's and these steel liners, button lock, and for me that's it's kind of so-so. Like, if there was some other aspects of the knife that might be done better, it's so for me. So we'll come back, like I said, full circle on that. But so the price tag is one thing. Just how thick this knife is. You're coming in at about 0.7 inches thick. It is a pocket chunker, as Mr. Jimmy Slash would say, you know it's there. You're going to know it when you have it in hand. You're going to know it when you have it in your pocket. 0.7 thick. I mean, it's a pocket chunker. So that is one thing to touch on as well. One of the other things for a talking point on this knife is going to be just the blade. I don't think the blade works for the design of the knife, and that's just, that's just me. Really thick blade stock, really robust tip, S35UN. That's all good and well. But I think that's more of a working blade. That's a hard, almost a hard use blade, how thick this stock is with that saber grind. If this was a work knife, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment on why that doesn't work for this knife, but if this was a heavy duty work knife, that's a good blade stock, good just overall execution of the blade. But for a collector's piece, in my opinion, a fine art piece, something that looks like it might be gentlemanly, I think that's kind of overkill, a little bit overdoing it. Because to me, this isn't a piece you're going to be heavy use, doing heavy work with. And you might, but we'll talk more on why in just a moment. But that's one other thing. And then the jimping is not placed very well on the knife. So if I'm gonna use this knife and I'm gonna want to engage that jimping, my hand's gonna fall like this. And I would almost, we got these side ridges here, and that it's not doing anything to help lock in actually on top of the blade. The jimping where it's at, the jimping is actually nice and grippy, but it's wrong where it's at, in my opinion. I think the jimping needs to be a little bit more forward on the blade and not so far back here, because this way I could actually engage it and get it to kind of hold in hand and get a little bit more control of that blade. But where it's at right now is not really doing anything unless I do like kind of a choke back grip, and then you're already giving up enough control of that blade where the jimping's not really going to matter. So that's another thing that's kind of just so-so. So one other thing I want to touch on is going to be the just out of the box sharpness. It's just kind of, it's a little rippy. It doesn't have the best edge on it, and we can do a pretty good edge. So to me, I was just a little unimpressed with the out of the box sharpness. But if you like sharpening your knives, you got a nice little side project. You get a knife and a side project, so that's always something to consider. But for me, it's just not. It's not that impressive. It's not a deal breaker by any means. But like I said, that's what makes it a so-so. It's just a talking point of the knife. With that said, we're going to go into some of the oh-no's on this guy, and there's a few to go over. One thing, like back in the beginning, I talked about the pocket clip. This is one knife where I could say the pocket clip is definitely the deal breaker, and let's talk about why. First things first, you have this really just high, let me get it to focus. You have this really high standoff construction, and with that you're getting a knife, it sticks out quite a bit. You got these really like squared off screws. You've got this little metal point here. You've got metal edges. So all that kind of just ties together into some sort of like super hot spot. And I'm going to show you in hand how that plays out. So if I'm gripping this knife, and that's what I'm talking about where this blade doesn't work with this knife, because if I've got this knife in hand and I go to do any kind of serious cutting besides like opening a letter or cutting open a box, you'll see, and I grip that knife, she leaves a little bit of a love bite there, and that's a pretty significant hot spot. It might be one of the worst, if not the worst hot spot I've ever experienced on a knife. And you can't remove the pocket clip on this knife because the way these standoffs are and the way the screws line up. I'll link Slicey Dicey's review down below if you guys haven't seen it yet. He talks a little bit about that. He ended up replacing the screws in his, and for me, I don't, on a $189 knife, I don't know if I should be having to replace hardware to make it usable. And so I hate this pocket clip so much. And one of the other things about it is, the hot spot aside, the way it's going to ride in the pocket, it looks stupid. It really does. I hate to just be so crass about it, but
yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
And with it having just these two standoff constructions here, I'm going to put a video in, having these two standoff constructions just on one side, when you slide it in your pocket, the way the knife wants to kick out in your pocket is it kind of slants, and it's almost taking up the whole pocket, making that pocket no good. And you can kind of see how it's cutting across. And then the other thing is, if you slide it all the way over to the right of your pocket, with the way the standoff is and just the edges of the knife, it wants to kind of kick out. So you're getting it almost cocked in the pocket to the side, and it's just not a good carry. It doesn't carry well, and in any way, shape, or form. If you could remove the pocket clip, maybe this wouldn't be so bad, but that's going to just kind of take us into just the general ergonomics of the knife. It's kind of all over the place. Up here, this is working well. The jimping's not in the right place, but that little finger groove is okay. But the rest of it's just kind of weird. You got the thickest part, and the heaviest made part of the knife is right here, right behind your forefinger. And then it gets skinny down here, but it doesn't really do much of a taper because that pocket clip kind of sticks out as well. So you're just kind of trapped into this big, just odd ergonomic mess of a knife. And pocket clip aside, down here you do have some more stuff causing a hot spot. I'm going to focus real quick on these scales. Alright, so hopefully this is going to pick this up, but you can see that that carbon fiber scale actually sticks out past the metal liner down here and up here, which, you know, with all the other stuff that's going on down here to make this a hot mess, that's almost even like something that I don't care that much about, but it is actually an issue that does cause a hot spot. And we're going to throw another video of the knife back in the pocket again, and this is just going to show you how this does stick out of the pocket. You know, I hate to backtrack on you guys, I try not to do that, but if you look, you see you got all these metal pieces sticking out of your pocket. And when I was actually had this in the pocket for a little bit, taking some groceries out of the car, and I turned, you know, that went across my car. Now, fortunately, it's dirty enough where you wouldn't have noticed it, even if it did do anything. But that's something to keep in mind. You got, you know, Snag City going on down here. All this stuff kind of playing around and sticking out. It's not a good time if you happen to rub your hand across it. It's just, as the kids would say, I can't even. It's probably the only first and only time you're ever going to hear me say that on my channel. But this pocket clip, I can't even. So let's move on to something else real quick. One of the other things I want to touch on real quick is the thumb studs. They don't work. You can't actuate the knife. It is locked when it's closed. So having thumb studs on there, you know, I don't get it. Is it an external stop pin? Is it a blade stop? Well, nope. It doesn't even make contact here or up at the top. Let me get it to focus just a little bit just so you guys can see for yourselves. You know, you have space. So I don't know what the point of having thumb studs on a knife that you can't use is. To me, it's like having like hood scoops on a V6 Camaro. Like, why? Your car can't do what you want it to do. Why put them on there? So I don't get what was going on with this. Even with, you know, maybe this is his signature clip and he just likes that, and you know, it is a form piece over function. Great, cool. But why thumb studs? It doesn't do anything to improve the look of the knife. And I know I'm not the only one who was fooled into thinking this was a front flipper as well. It's not. That's just the excess blade that's going to meet up with this kind of backspacer up at the top. So, yeah, it's not a front flipper. It's not a thumb stud knife. It's only a button lock. So I'm not quite sure what was going on up here. Talking to another trusted source of mine as I was going over this knife because it just left me so perplexed. He said maybe there was some stuff lost in translation as they made the knife. And maybe I'd like to think that's what's going on here. But I think it's just an art piece. I think it's just a piece to add to the collection. If you like Dew Hara's work and you want to own something that he had a hand in creating, but you can't afford a $1,000 custom, then yeah, this is probably something that you'd be interested in. It's built like a work knife. Like in hand, it feels like, hey, this should be a great work knife. But when you throw in the rest of the stuff, the way it looks and the way everything falls in line, it doesn't. It's not a work knife, which it feels like it's made to be. It's not a gentleman's carry, which it looks like it should be. So I'm not really sure what's going on here. This is just, to me, a case of too much form and not enough function. That's my take on the knife, guys. I dislike it very much. If I had to say like it, love it, or leave it, obviously I'm leaving this one. This one's get left at the curb. Rodney, my trash man, can come pick this up on Monday. So, alright guys, thanks for watching. As always, I appreciate you guys giving me a moment of your time. As I stated earlier, I do appreciate Massdrop sending this along so I could experience it, but I did want to share with you guys what my experience was with it, and unfortunately it was not a good one. So as always guys, thanks for watching, have a good one, we'll see you next time. Later guys.